I'm hearing some good news. The White House announced on the 13th it approves South Korea's nuclear submarine construction and will cooperate on fuel procurement. So they expressed their support for South Korea's efforts to pursue civilian uranium enrichment and spent nuclear fuel reprocessing, and also stated that they will work closely together on this as well. We keep hearing good news. Today, let's discuss this topic. At the Korea-United States Summit held on the occasion of the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit, nuclear submarines were mentioned for the first time, and since then, Korea and the United States have continued negotiations on various areas such as building and approving nuclear submarines. Until now, there was only talk and no proof like a fact sheet, so many called it just lip service. But this time, a conclusion has finally been reached. The most notable part this time is that the United States has clearly stated its approval for Korea to build nuclear submarines. Korea has wanted to build nuclear submarines for a very long time. Until now, the United States' concerns and domestic circumstances have repeatedly caused these plans to fall through. This was the first official document to use the term approval. Additionally, the document stated the United States would support Korea's uranium enrichment and spent nuclear fuel reprocessing. Since this area involves sensitive proposals under the Korea-United States nuclear agreement, this clear statement is seen as a practical move that greatly increases Korea's nuclear fuel cycle autonomy. The issue of nuclear submarines appears to be the most decisive turning point in this agreement. There have been ongoing criticisms that construction at the Philly Shipyard mentioned by the United States is unrealistic. The Philly Shipyard doesn't have any docks, nuclear propulsion systems, or integrated facilities needed to build submarines, nor does it have the necessary personnel. The infrastructure would have to be rebuilt from scratch, and many analyses have pointed out that this process alone would take at least several years. On top of that, because the Philly Shipyard has had a low operating rate, they would need to recruit new engineers with experience in building nuclear submarines. There is also the issue that costs would skyrocket in order to complete processes that meet safety standards. Because of this, even in Korea, some criticize that building at the Philly Shipyard would waste time and money. However, this time, National Security Office Director Wee Seong-rak stated that discussions between the two countries have proceeded on the premise that Korea's nuclear submarines will be built in Korea, which has significantly changed the situation. This is being interpreted to mean that the construction site has already tilted significantly in favor of Korea. More importantly, the Philippine shipyard is no longer mentioned in the fact sheet. President Trump and United States officials kept mentioning it, but its absence from the fact sheet suggests it was reconsidered during negotiations. In the end, we can conclude that a Korean shipyard with practical shipbuilding capabilities is effectively being solidified as the final contractor. South Korea's submarine construction is world-class and can meet the United States' schedule and cost expectations, making it a logical choice. Looking at this trend, the possibility of nuclear submarines being built in South Korea has become very high, and it seems that this direction is already being taken as a given in negotiations between the two countries. There's also something that could provoke a strong reaction from China. In this meeting, South Korea and the United States clearly stated their opposition to any unilateral change of the status quo in the Taiwan Strait. China is likely to react most sensitively to this part. With China raising military pressure and the threat of invading Taiwan, South Korea and the United States jointly declaring they won't accept forceful changes is a strong statement. This declares that Taiwan Strait stability is a shared strategic interest for South Korea and the United States, signaling containment to China. South Korea, the United States, and Japan agreed to boost trilateral cooperation, with the main change being stronger military power. The Lee Jae-myung administration's plan to import $25 billion, 36 trillion won in American military equipment by 2030 is notable for its scale and its intent to rapidly boost military strength by speeding up procurement. They also reaffirmed the continued stationing of United States forces in Korea. It's not just a simple declaration to maintain the stationing of United States forces, but with the sharing of a comprehensive support plan worth 48 trillion won for the United States military in Korea. This is leading to the establishment of a system that will guarantee the operational capabilities and facility management of United States forces in Korea over the long term. The Nuclear Consultative Group Agreement under Yoon Suk-yeol's administration will likely lead to a more thorough response to North Korea's nuclear threat, improving information sharing and strategic asset operations. Among the measures, the most notable is the plan to raise the defense budget. South Korea's plan to boost its defense budget to 3.5% of gross domestic product is highly aggressive, even compared to past defense capability increases. This can also serve as a key variable in the process of preparing for the transfer of wartime operational control. With the transfer of wartime operational control, South Korea must handle much more military capability on its own. This agreement, combining United States support and increased South Korean investment, strengthens the response to North Korea. South Korea and the United States agreed to strengthen extended deterrence against North Korea's military threats and expand cooperation to maintain stable deterrence after wartime operational control transfers by improving South Korea's conventional forces. In fact, not only that, but if you look at the new provisions that were not previously agreed upon in the shipbuilding and defense industry sectors, as well as the fact sheet released by the White House this time, you can see there are additional developments. The United States has announced that it is open to the possibility of building United States Navy vessels at South Korean shipyards. South Korea could now serve as an additional production base for United States commercial and military shipbuilding. Additionally, the two countries will run a shipbuilding cooperation group focused on shipyard modernization, maintenance, workforce training, and supply chain restructuring. Since South Korea already has the world's largest commercial shipbuilding capacity, it's becoming more likely that the United States Navy's ship demand will not have to rely solely on its own military-industrial complex. However, there are concerns since the United States has built warships only domestically for over 100 years under the Jones Act. The United States now appears to be considering fully abolishing the Jones Act. On the other hand, this shows how much the American shipbuilding industry has collapsed. It also suggests the situation is now urgent for the United States Navy. Previously, the United States Navy's main weakness was its inability to recover quickly from major damage. Judging by the plan to build them in Korean shipyards, it shows just how seriously the United States is viewing the current situation. Afterwards, in the field of economic and trade relations, a new provision was added that sets the annual amount of dollars procured by Korea during the process of strategic investment with the United States at $20 billion and the amount in Korean won at less than 29 trillion won. The United States knows that a surge in dollar demand from large investments could destabilize the exchange rate. First time a foreign exchange market stabilization mechanism is in an official document. Korea was advised to use options like overseas financing and swaps instead of buying large amounts of dollars directly. The trade provisions also include a plan to set the tariff on Korean auto parts at 15%. Steps to eliminate discrimination against Korea have been reinforced in areas like agricultural non-tariff barriers, data transfer, and digital service rules. The 50,000 vehicle quota for American cars meeting safety standards to enter Korea without extra modifications has been removed. They also pledged to relax regulations, like removing extra emission certification steps. The United States didn't simply agree to Korea's request. This time, Korea is investing $15 billion and $20 billion. In return, they lowered the tariffs. However, there is still a tough road ahead. As I explained earlier, Korea approved Taiwan's association as well as nuclear submarines and reprocessing facilities. This is definitely something that China would strongly oppose. After Japan announced it would intervene militarily if China acts on Taiwan, the Chinese consul general in Osaka made extreme comments about Prime Minister Takaichi, suggesting beheading. The Chinese Foreign Ministry also issued harsh threats, mentioning burning to death. It seems that Korea has joined in as well, so China will definitely strongly oppose Korea too. I even think that China might impose sanctions on Korea. It looks like China's response won't just end at a simple diplomatic protest. Already, within China, there are growing voices defining the expansion of South Korea-United States nuclear cooperation as a move that shakes the regional security balance, and it's highly likely that this backlash will lead to real pressure on Korea. The first thing we can expect is economic pressure, reminiscent of the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense retaliation. China didn't call them sanctions, but Korean companies suddenly face fire inspections, environmental checks, tax audits, distribution blockades, and business restrictions. This time as well, we could see similar measures such as customs clearance delays for Korean products, strengthened safety inspections, and additional technical certification procedures. This is the hardest way for companies to respond, and they could use non-tariff trade barriers as well. China may suddenly raise quarantine standards for certain items based on its own regulations or repeatedly require document reviews, potentially disrupting the supply chains of Korean companies. Blocking products before market entry has a major impact. I think China may also use its usual soft sanctions. Actions like cutting group visa approvals, limiting Korean celebrity broadcasts, and delaying performance permits could return. These measures appear procedural, avoiding diplomatic friction but still influencing Korean public opinion. I think their diplomatic statements will also be strong in tone. China may directly target Korea with strong criticism through statements from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs or state-run media, and they may also conduct a public opinion campaign blaming Korea as the country responsible for regional instability. Since we've already experienced this once, I'm sure we have good ways to respond, but I hope Korea continues to respond wisely. They've also agreed on specific ways to implement it. Building a nuclear submarine requires United States Congress approval, which may be challenging depending on United States domestic issues. It would be great if they handled this quickly and continued delivering good news. What do you think about the current situation? Please leave your thoughts in the comments as well. That concludes the video. Thank you.